Welcome to the Georgia Highlands College Math 97 and Math 99 instructional videos. In this video segment, we'll be answering the question, what is a quadratic equation? Well, a quadratic equation in X is an equation that can be written in this particular standard form. ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, let me focus in on the word that it can be written in this form. When you first see an equation, it may be quadratic, but you may have to rearrange the terms to have it in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, which is considered the standard form. Now, in this form, a, b, and c are simply real numbers, and a cannot be 0. Because if a were 0, you'd be multiplying 0 by x squared, and that term would completely drop off. And then it wouldn't be considered a quadratic equation anymore, because a quadratic equation is one whose degree, or the highest exponent, is 2. So let's take a look at some examples of some quadratic equations so you can begin to recognize them yourself. All right, so I have 3 examples written here on the screen, and each of these are quadratic equations, and I'll just point out the characteristics that make these quadratic equations. So first of all, you can see that each of these has a degree of 2. So my highest exponent for each of these equations is 2, making them quadratic. Now, if we look at the first example here, you can see I already have it in standard form. ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A always goes with the x squared term. So in this case, a is 3. B always goes with the x. So b is 7 here. And c is the constant, which in this case is positive 9. So for this first example, a is equal to 3, b is equal to 7, and c is equal to 9. Now you can only determine a, b, and c when you have your quadratic equation equaling 0, so when it's in the standard form. Let's move on to the next example. So we've already determined that the degree is 2, making it quadratic. Let's see if we can identify a, b, and c for this particular example. Well, a always goes with the x squared term. So in this case, a is equal to negative 2. B goes with the x term. So b is positive 5. And finally, c is the constant term, so we have c is negative 10. Notice the sign of the term goes with the a, b, and the c. And the a, b, and the c's do not have the variable x on them at all. It's simply the coefficient of the term. Now let's look at this last and final example, and you may be looking at it a little bit puzzled, saying, well, it doesn't look like the other two. But simply because the degree is 2, that makes it quadratic. We just have to rearrange the terms to get it into standard form so that it looks like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So I am going to first move the negative 5x over to the left-hand side. And that's a 0-term pair there. So I'm going to simplify. So far I have 4x squared minus 5x equals 7. And then all I have left to do is subtract that 7 off of the right-hand side, bringing a negative 7 over to the left. There's my 0 pair. And I have 4x squared minus 5x minus 7 equals 0. So now we can easily identify A, B, and C. A is positive 4, B is negative 5, and C is negative 7. Notice that all of these are equal to 0, and it may not seem important with just looking at the quadratic equation as to why it has to equal 0, but we'll find out in the next video why it's so important that we rearrange these terms to equal to 0. I hope that this has been helpful for you in learning how to identify a quadratic equation, and just remember that A always goes with the x squared term, B always goes with the x term, and C is always the constant term tacked on to the end, and we always want our quadratic equations equaling 0 before we begin to solve. In the next videos, you'll find out how to actually solve quadratic equations. So I hope that this has been helpful for you in just identifying what a quadratic equation is. If you have any further questions regarding this topic, please contact your Highlands instructor. Thank you.